Saturday afternoon, 1974. You're 8 years old, and the ice cream van is coming down the street. You can hear the tune getting louder. You run to your mum, and before you've even opened your mouth, she tells you the music means he's run out, and you believe her. For years, half the kids in Britain grew up thinking the van only played that jingle when there was nothing left to sell. It was a lie every mum in the country told, and it worked on all of us. I've got 20 moments like that in this film. Ordinary things from 1970s Britain that felt perfectly normal then and look absurd now. That small, private deception is the first of many. Next, the object every kid on the street wanted, the rally chopper. Over the decade, they came with different-sized wheels, high-rise handlebars, and a long padded seat that made you feel like you were on a motorbike even while doing 4 miles an hour down a cul-de-sac. Nobody talked about the gear stick mounted on the crossbar, directly between your legs. One hard bump or one emergency stop, and every boy in Britain understood pain in a way no words could describe. Walking home, pushing the bike in silence while your mates pretended not to notice. You'd still give a mate a backie, still try wheelies, even though the weight made disaster inevitable. The chopper was brilliant and borderline dangerous, and every kid loved it. For years, nobody questioned another constant of the streets, white dog poo. It was everywhere, every pavement, every park, every football pitch, white, chalky, sitting there as if it had always been part of the scenery. The reason was simple. Dog food in the 1970s was full of powdered bone and calcium dogs couldn't fully digest. Left to bake in the sun, it dried out and turned white. And nobody picked it up, because there was no law making you. An entire generation grew up stepping around white dog poo without giving it a second thought. It's completely gone now. The fact we lived through an era of white dog poo and didn't question it is, somehow, the funniest part. Every autumn, there was one ritual you could rely on: photo day at school. Your mum would dress you in a jumper you'd never seen, pulled from a drawer that opened once a year, usually hand-knitted by a relative, usually in a color found nowhere else in nature. An angry mustard, or a brown trying very hard to be orange. You'd sit on a small wooden chair in front of a pale blue backdrop and stare at the camera, looking slightly lost in a jumper nobody would ever wear again. Home it went, back in the drawer until next year. The photograph sits in a drawer somewhere even now. Sunday afternoons were given over to the Radio 1 chart rundown and the cassette recorder. Finger hovering over record, play buttons poised. The plan was simple: capture it cleanly. What usually happened was different. The DJ talked over the intro, your brother slammed a door, you pressed record a fraction too late, or the tape ran out 3/4 of the way through. Then you wrote the track names on the cassette inlay card in your neatest handwriting, including the songs you didn't even want but couldn't be bothered to edit out. The whole process ate the entire afternoon. The result was never quite right, but you kept the tape anyway. If you had a space hopper, it was that big orange rubber ball with a face and 2 rubber ears you gripped while you bounced down the road, everywhere in the early 1970s. You were utterly convinced you were in control. You were not. It tipped constantly. Kids face-planted on garden paths and concrete on a daily basis. The rubber ears dug into your palms until they were red raw. You'd build up speed, hit a stone, and that was it. Down you went. Everyone fell off, and through it all, the face on the front just stared at you. Advertising shaped taste, too. For MASH, get Smash. The Cadbury Smash adverts ran right through the 1970s and were later voted one of the greatest British TV adverts ever made. Robot Martians sat around a table, mocking humans for peeling potatoes, boiling them for 20 minutes, and then smashing them, when you could add hot water to a packet of beige powder and call it dinner. Smash was in nearly every kitchen. You'd add boiling water, stir, and serve. It looked and smelled like mashed potato, but it wasn't. It was warm paste from a packet. An entire generation grew up thinking that was what mash tasted like. A bit grey, a bit gluey, ready in about 30 seconds. Those Martians were right to laugh. Tuesday, 7th June 1977. The Queen's Silver Jubilee, 25 years on the throne. The country treated it like one big invitation. Tables dragged into the middle of the road, bunting strung between lampposts, red, white, and blue everywhere. Some authentic, some cut from plastic bags and drawn on with felt-tip pens. Lukewarm orange squash in plastic cups, ham sandwiches with crusts curling in the sun, slightly warm egg sandwiches that nobody really wanted but everybody ate because someone's mum had made them. Every family got a commemorative mug they were told not to use. It went straight to the back of the cupboard and stayed there for the next 40 years. It rained in plenty of places. Nobody cared. Sitting in the road, eating off a paper plate, it felt profoundly British. Towards the end of the decade came the perm. It wasn't just footballers. Kevin Keegan had the look. It was plumbers, bank managers, geography teachers. Dads across Britain decided tight curls were the best look a man could have. Men actually sat in hairdressers and asked for it by name. Look at any family photo from 1978 or 1979, and there's a good chance your dad looks like a poodle that just won Best in Show. Nobody questioned it at the time. It simply happened to a whole generation of grown men. And then, as suddenly as it came, it stopped. When space dust arrived in sweet shops in the late 1970s, nothing like it had ever hit a child's tongue. Tip the packet onto your tongue and it fizzed, crackled, and popped in a way that made you think something was happening to your body that shouldn't be. Within days, every playground carried the same rumor. Eat space dust and drink a bottle of Coca-Cola and your stomach would explode. It had happened to someone's cousin, definitely. Nobody could prove it, but the story spread. None of it was true, yet kids kept repeating it, and other kids kept eating the sweets anyway, half expecting something terrible, which somehow made it more exciting. Saturday nights meant the whole family around the telly for Bruce Forsyth and the Generation Game. It began in 1971, and by the mid-1970s was pulling in over 21 million viewers. At the end of each show, the winning contestant had to remember everything that came along a conveyor belt. A fondue set, a Teasmade, a set of saucepans, a his and hers luggage set, and, somewhere in the middle, a cuddly toy. The room would erupt. "Cuddly toy! You forgot the cuddly toy!" Every week, without fail, someone forgot the cuddly toy, and over 40 years later, you can still feel the frustration. Then, in early 1974, came the 3-day week. From 1st January to 7th March 1974, the miners' strike forced the government to limit commercial electricity use to 3 days a week. Television stopped broadcasting at 10:30 at night. Candles sold out across the country. Adults fretted over the economy. Children treated it like an adventure, making toast on a fork over the coal fire, playing board games by candlelight, discovering that Monopoly goes on forever when you can't quite see the board properly. Schools were freezing. If you were 10 years old, it was the best few weeks of the year. It was a genuine national crisis, and for children, it felt like a holiday. Nothing prepared you for a vinyl car seat in summer. Climb into the back of a Cortina or a Morris Marina in shorts, sit on a black vinyl seat that's been baking in the sun, and by the time you arrive, you're heat sealed to it. Peeling a child's bare legs off a 1970s back seat felt like removing a giant strip of cello tape, painfully slow, and then doing it all again on the way home. Not once did anyone suggest seats be made of another material. Then, the summer of 1976, the hottest and driest for over 300 years. Temperatures hit 32 degrees for 15 straight days. Reservoirs emptied and gardens browned overnight. The government appointed Dennis Howell as Minister for Drought. Within days of his appointment, the rain returned. Before that, standpipes went up in streets. Some areas had water switched off for hours. Nobody bothered to wash their car, and for a moment, nobody cared. That same summer brought an invasion of ladybirds. An estimated 23.65 billion of them swarmed across southern and eastern England. You couldn't walk down the street without being coated in hungry red beetles, in your hair, on your arms, even in your sandwiches. It felt like a low-budget British horror film shot entirely outdoors. Badges were everywhere, save water, bath with a friend among them. which in practice usually meant sharing the same lukewarm grey water with your brother and pretending that counted. If you wanted pocket money, you learned to collect pop bottles. Companies placed a cash deposit on every glass bottle, and kids found empties in hedges and under park benches. A Saturday morning circuit with a carrier bag and a borrowed crate could buy you a quarter of sweets. It was often a child's first taste of earning money, and it felt absolute. Thursday nights at 7:30 were top of the pops on BBC One for the decade. For most